welcome or welcome back to Rise and Align, where we talk about all things high vibrational. We are your hosts, Demi and
Halie. Today we are going to go over some books that we would love to recommend to you guys. Most of them are personal development books or spiritual based books, and we have been studying a lot of the stuff that we talk about for years, and some of these books have been amazing pockets of wisdom for us, and we would love to pass that along to you. So I think books are so special because they carry and hold so much wisdom and experience from the author. So it's just a really cool way to almost gain like their life experience without having to have actually lived it. So it's really, really cool.
I love that. I agree. It's like you are able to gain the perspective of the person who experienced it without having to experience it yourself. It's almost like a cheat code for life. So that said, I've had so many books help me in so many different ways. When I was doing the consultantship through Proctor Gallagher, Bob Proctor would often recommend books, and he taught me something about books that I really love and I want to share. It's that when you find a page that's really meaningful to you, you should stay on that page. He actually told us all to get like a book holder and leave the page open and reread the page every day for like a decent amount of time until you really feel like you get everything out of it. Because when you reread a book, you get something different out of it. Because as you expand and as your mind changes, your perspective changes, you're able to understand different concepts deeper. And so for me, books have helped me with that so much. So I like cherish my books. I can't get rid of any of them because I'm like, I want to go back and look at them and remember, and I know one of my favorite rappers, Russ, I have his book here. He's also like huge into mindset, and his book is called It's All in Your Head, which, is a great representation for saying that your mind creates your reality. And he says in one of his songs that he kind of like got out of alignment and that he had to go reread The Alchemist. And when I heard that song, I was like, you know what? I need to go reread The Alchemist. So The Alchemist is another one of the books I have here. And, I just love that every book has a different perspective on oftentimes a similar concept.
Yes. Yeah. I feel like a lot of the books that I have are regarding a similar topic, but it's that author's perspective or that person's experience or whatever, like their version of the topic.
It's like it allows you to understand it in a deeper way, a different way. And it's just the magic of books, really.
Yeah. Yeah. I also love that you mentioned like rereading a page. It's the same for like rereading the book like a year down the road. Like you're an entirely different person from that point, and being able to read it from a different perspective, or being able to read it with your gained expansion or whatever it is, like you do get something different out of it than you would have the first time you read it, or wherever you're at a different point in your life, and you may see or get something different out of it that you need at that point that you didn't before.
100%. I feel like too. So I think it was in high school that we had to read The Alchemist. And I remember being like, this book is kind of boring.
I know. Yes.
And when I went back and reread it, I was like, oh, wow. It's like the journey of life and like teaching you how to alchemize emotions, and like it's so much deeper. And I'm sure that when I reread it again, it's going to be even more so. So I absolutely love that. Obviously, if you haven't read The Alchemist, it's a great book. It's really, it's not very long. Like it's an easy read. And there's so many like spiritual meanings within it that seem like simple things while you're reading the book, but it's got a lot deeper meaning if you really look into it. So definitely recommend that one, especially if you don't read a ton. It's an easier read, which I think is good to like get into reading again, to have something that's like easier to read.
I feel similarly about the Four Agreements, which it's a shorter, very digestible book, and it's very understandable and a good like starting point, I think, as well.
100%. Yes. Okay. So I want to share just kind of random pages, because I feel like it's similar to tarot books. When you open them, like sometimes the page just has the perfect meaning. So this page that I just opened to, this is from The Alchemist. It says, "This was my personal legend, not yours." The alchemist answered, but I wanted to show you that it was possible. I think that's just perfect for the whole book, you know? So like the details of the book, irregardless of what book it might be, aren't your story, but they can show you that it's possible. And to understand that something is possible is to then accept that belief, which can then make you feel and act differently, which, you know, really helps you to manifest. And all of these books have helped me so much with that. So you mentioned the 4 agreements. I've got her around here. Let's see.
And one of my favorite things to do with books is like to highlight things that resonate with you, or to underline them or whatever. Because if you're holding a blank book and like you're flipping through it, like that doesn't mean much. But if you like are flipping through and you see that you like underline something, you can go back and read that. And like, it's just an easy way to like access the parts that really resonated with you, or that you would be wanting to continue to reread. But the 4 Agreements is by Don Miguel Ruiz, I want to say, Ruiz. And it is a really, again, like I said, a very digestible book. It is shorter, and it is teaching you how to create your own dream. As an infant, we are taught things and surrounded by things that are other people's dream, is what he calls it. And it just kind of teaches you ways of being, or like moral codes or agreements that you can live by or change, to allow you to create your own dream, your most fulfilling life, and to kind of leave behind all of those previous agreements that you've created with your life, or that you've been like trained to hold on to. One thing that I really got out of this book is the importance of our word and how those are spells. We did talk a lot about that, like in our previous episode about music, but just knowing that what you are speaking are spells, and what you're putting onto others, and what others are speaking can be put onto you. So being mindful of like what you're allowing yourself to take in and what you're surrounded by. And then the fact that, you know, life is God passing through you, and that it's okay to enjoy your life. And in fact, we're here to enjoy life and to not feel guilty for pursuing what makes us happy, even if it's not what someone else's dream is for you, or what other people might think is what you should be doing.
I love that. I am not completely done with that book, and I'm excited to read the rest of it. That makes me really excited about it. I've also noticed so far that when they're talking about these agreements that we take on, to me, I've learned that as your subconscious belief system. Yeah. So it's cool to see it from a different perspective. And I think that maybe the agreement concept might resonate better with other people who haven't learned about the subconscious mind, you know? So I really have liked that aspect. And I would like to share the 4 agreements with you guys, because even just so far, it has been changing my life. Honestly, that sounds silly, but it's true. I think these 4 agreements are something that we should all take on, and the world would be a better place if we did. So the first agreement is be impeccable with your word. Speak with integrity. Say only what you mean. Avoid using the word to speak against yourself or to gossip about others. Use the power of your word in the direction of truth and love. It's honestly quite tricky to do that too, because we have been so taught otherwise, most of us, but it really just that one agreement can really change everything. The second one is don't take anything personally. Again, can be tricky, but wow, game changer. Nothing others do is because of you. What others say and do is a projection of their own reality, their own dream. When you are immune to the opinions and actions of others, you won't be the victim of needless suffering.
And that's something that a lot of other spiritual books talk about, but in a different way. And I really love this perspective of that.
Yes, I do too. And I've learned a lot about like victim mentality, and like how a lot of us, you know, grew up in that and hold on to that, and holding on to that victim mentality and seeing yourself as the victim actually creates it over and over again in your reality. So if you follow this one agreement to not take anything personally, it can really change your perspective of your entire life. The third one is don't make assumptions. Find the courage to ask questions and to express what you really want. Communicate with others as clearly as you can to avoid misunderstandings, sadness, and drama. With just this one agreement, you can completely transform your life. You really can. You know, for me, I recognize my subconscious belief system, and it's almost more frustrating to understand what it is and to still catch yourself acting out of that. But also, like, the frustration and the anger towards yourself doesn't help either. So you have to kind of let that go. But to be aware of it can really help you to catch it and change it. And I often find myself, or in the past at least, I have caught myself making assumptions about other people. And it's almost like your subconscious acts to protect itself.
Yeah,
and acts out of fear. So you might just assume that somebody has negative intentions or that they don't feel a certain way about you or something like that, just to protect yourself. But often making that assumption can you know, ruin a relationship, or who knows, you know, it doesn't end up well. So to not make assumptions, yes, wonderful. And the last one is to always do your best. Your best is going to change from moment to moment. It will be different when you are healthy as opposed to when you're sick. Under any circumstance, simply do your best and you will avoid self-judgment, self-abuse, and regret, which is what I was just talking about.
Yeah. I do love that one, especially, you know, when you're more of a people pleaser and you feel like you're trying to gain acceptance from someone else or feel worthy by someone else, you can feel like very shameful or guilty if you are not performing up to like standards that you think someone else might be setting. But if you sit back and like really think about, if you're doing your best and you're putting your all into whatever it is you're doing, that's all that matters. It doesn't have anything to do with what someone else might think of you or if they think you're doing enough. It's just about making sure that you truly are showing up as your best every single day, no matter where you're at in that given time. And I love that.
Yeah, I love that too. It's interesting. I love talking to you because we hold different perspectives on a lot of concepts too. Bob Proctor talked about this concept a lot too, and he would say that you need to do everything in a specific way. And he meant that, like, do everything your best and, you know, put that energy into it, because when you put that energy into it, when you really care about something and like you're doing a good job and you're doing it the right way, not taking like shortcuts and whatnot, that's the energy that you get back from it as well. Whether that be a project, a work, or a relationship, or whatever it might be, always do your best, because that's what you're going to get back from the universe.
And if you listen to our moon episode, you know, especially if you are like a woman or you're operating more out of your feminine energy, you are operating at different levels every single day. Every single day, your energy's different. And like the moon, your phases are different every single day. And your best today might be different than your best a week from now, or it might look different a week from now. So not like being so strict with how you show up. I don't think you need to feel guilty if, you know, you're not showing up the same way that you showed up yesterday or whatnot. Just knowing inside what you're offering is most authentic to you and you are giving it your best.
I think it's so much more about the energy that you're putting into rather than the results or like the thing that you're accomplishing. It's not like how much you do, it's the quality. So another one of my absolute favorite books is Psycho-Cybernetics. Have you read this one yet?
No, I haven't heard this.
You would like this one too. Okay, so Bob Proctor recommended this book to me as well. It's by Maxwell Maltz. And this book, actually, a plastic surgeon wrote it. And he wrote it based on the concept that he realized when a person held a certain image of themselves, their self-image or their self-concept, that they would act a certain way. And sometimes when he would change their physical appearance, they would change their self-image and then they would act completely different. So sometimes a person's life would entirely change because they had plastic surgery.
Mm-hmm.
But then other times they didn't, which led him to research self-image and, you know, how much that changes a person's reality and success in life. And so sometimes people would come to him with the concept that they thought like their nose was too big or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of doing surgery on them, he would have them work on their self-concept.
Mm-hmm.
And so eventually they would come back and say, you know what, I don't actually need this surgery. And it's crazy. Everything just changed.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just really fascinating. I think I definitely highlighted some stuff in here.
This to me is everything. The way that this book looks like worn and old, like that
Yes.
to me is like, I love it so much.
Yes. I know I love to get old books too. This one I actually got used, and then so there's other like underlined things in here that I didn't do, and then there's also like highlighted things that I did.
That's so fun because then
I
you get to see like what someone else thought was like that like resonated with them.
Yes, I love it. And it's interesting, a lot of times it isn't the same as, you know, what I
Mm-hmm.
might think. But so I'll just read a couple random things out of here. Prescription. Accept yourself as you are and start from there. Learn to emotionally tolerate imperfection in yourself. See, that's just so good.
Mm-hmm.
That's the prescription instead of, you know, getting surgery or something like that. It just talks so much about like how our self-image changes how we act in every area of life. And he, you know, used a lot of different, not only clients, but like people's lives he would research. So, you know, it comes from like the children and all kinds of different like age and race and everything. And it really just helps you see it from so many different perspectives. Like how if somebody says something to you like, you're not smart, you're bad at math, like that can change the image that you hold of yourself and it change the way that you act about everything.
And that to me like reaffirms a lot of concepts from a lot of these different books. Is like it stems from like your subconscious beliefs, your subconscious programming, or it stems from within, like how you feel within. To me, that tells me like how you're going to feel about yourself externally, but the root isn't how you look externally. The root comes from within. And that's like anatomy of spirit. That's a similar concept in a different way, and same with becoming supernatural.
And again, everything is connected, I swear. And all of these books really, you know, can be intertwined with each other and with all of life, honestly. So the reason they call it psycho-cybernetics, I'd like to mention too, is really interesting. A cybernetic mechanism feels its way to the goal. So an example of a cybernetic mechanism is like a thermometer, or like, I can't think of the word. It's not exactly a thermometer, but it uses the thermometer to like say that you set your heat to 65 and if the heat is at 75, it feels that and goes back down to 65. Or if it's 62, it kicks on the heater. It works in the same way. So they say that our mind works in that same way and it feels its way to the destination. So chapter 3, it's called Imagination, the first key to your success mechanism. And what I highlighted here was creative imagination is not something reserved for the poets, the philosophers, the inventors. It enters into our every act, for imagination sets the goal or the picture, which our automatic mechanism works on. We act or fail to act, not because of will, as is so commonly believed, but because of imagination. A human being always acts and feels and performs in accordance with what he imagines to be true about himself and his environment. This is a basic and fundamental law of mind. It is the way we are built. Yeah.
I haven't finished this book yet, but I know that you're familiar with it, Think and Grow Rich. There's a whole chapter about imagination in that book as well.
I have it around here somewhere. Maybe I didn't bring it over here, but Think and Grow Rich is responsible for more millionaires than any other book. 100% recommend it. It's a more difficult read, I think, because it's written in like slightly, it's older, right? So it's really like, I don't know, professional and kind of a bit serious, but I swear it's also really spiritual, and you can get so much out of that book. And one of our assignments becoming a consultant was to reread the persistence chapter every day for 2 weeks, and I don't regret it, and I've read it again since.
Yes. I haven't read the whole thing yet, and I really love the perspective. It's a little bit different than other books that I've read, but it's also very a very masculine energy focused book.
Yes.
Like it's very like a lot of what I've read so far is like it's about like structure, taking action, and like making your steps. And a lot of the like people or millionaires or whatever that they reference are men. So it's interesting. I really do enjoy it, but it's just interesting to keep that in mind too. Like I wonder what like a feminine version of that book would look like.
That would be a great book. Yeah, I do too. So yeah, I completely agree. It is a very masculine energy book. It's so logical. It's like step by step, do this, do this, do this. But it's also really helpful. Like the chapter on persistence, I remember the specific part. It was about a woman who was in her 60s and she kept on trying out for Broadway. Like she would not give up. And eventually she actually did become really famous and successful. And that just makes me feel like there's hope, you know, like there, and one of the chapters is called Faith. And, you know, it's true that when you keep that faith and you stay persistent, eventually you will get there. You will. And you're not too old because time isn't an illusion.
Yes.
So yeah, I do like that about it. But it also, for me, was a more difficult read than a lot of other books.
Yes.
Because it's so masculine energy. And I'm like, I don't want to. Don't tell me what to do.
Yes. I brought it on vacation with me. And like normally I could read like a whole book on vacation, but I don't even know if I got halfway through because you have to like focus a lot and really get into it. But I do. Really. It's still a really, really great resource and stuff. But yeah.
100%. Yes. But yeah, it's not a fun read. it's more challenging, but it will help you, especially if you're determined to reach a goal. It will.
And if you know what you want, but you haven't begin taking action yet, or if you're like afraid to take action or you don't know where to start, like I think it's a good way to kind of get things moving for you.
Yes, 100%. So you mentioned Anatomy of the Spirit. You have that one as well, I believe, right?
Yes.
I love this book.
I would say like top 3. I like if I had to recommend 3 books to you, this would be in the top 3. You must read this book.
I agree. So it's by Carolyn Myss. It says The 7 Stages of Power and Healing. In this book, she intertwines, I believe, 7 different religions. So she has these concepts coming from so many different perspectives and ancient wisdom and knowledge. And she intertwines like chakras and I don't know.
She like intertwines a lot of different cultural ways of being and like religion and stuff. It kind of connects them all together and how they all kind of stem from the same thing. For me, what I gained from this book is that, you know, again, everything stems from within and you have the power to heal your body. Yeah. And I loved her perspective on the chakras and how different ailments, whether it's physical or mental, can relate to different chakras, and you know how to balance them and bring healing to your body from a more energetic perspective.
She worked for an oncologist from Harvard. So she actually was a reporter, and she just so happened to find herself at this gathering with this oncologist from Harvard. And she found that she had the gift of being a medical intuitive. What that means is that you can feel the ailments within a person. And I feel like on a level, we all have this ability. I definitely can feel when a person has stress. Just by talking to them for 2 minutes, I'm like, okay, I can kind of feel where their trauma lies. But it takes a lot of knowledge and education to understand what trauma is connected to what ailment. So with her, she was able to intuitively sense what was wrong with these patients. And so the oncologist gave her a phone call for the first time, and he said, I can't figure out what's wrong with this patient. And she said, it feels like there's cement in their throat. And granted, she did not meet this person. She did not see this person. She only knew their name and age and had permission to energetically, go into their energy field and examine them. And so when she said it feels like there's cement in their throat, the oncologist found out that they had esophageal cancer. And so from then on, she started to work with this oncologist from Harvard regularly. And then they began to teach other people all about this and how to help heal people. And then in this book, this is like the first book that I really deeply understood how our emotions create our physical ailments and how all physical ailments must originate in the mind, which therefore leads us to understand that we can heal ourselves via the mind. It's really profound, but it's also it's so spiritual too, and it had a lot to do with, you know, faith and love as well, which there's just so many things in this book. It is a magical book. The last sentence of the preface I had underlined here. It says, "Think of yourselves as holy beings and understand that every choice you make, every single choice, is a contract with creation itself." Love that. But I mean, I could go on forever about this book, but definitely check it out. I noticed one day that it doesn't have 5 stars on Amazon, and that is a mistake in my opinion.
They weren't ready to hear it.
Yeah, no, I really think that that's what it is. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I have so many things underlined in this book.
You know, if you are experiencing some sort of physical ailment, I think this is a really great resource for you.
Yes, 100%. Or even if you have like a close family member or something, I think it could be so helpful.
Yeah, even just to gain a different perspective of said ailment and where the cause is coming from.
Yep. She's got tons of information in here too. Like she tells you what every single chakra represents and, you know, what ailments are coming from where, and yeah, the whole thing's great. It's too much to
absolute must read.
Yeah.
I have another one that is at that level. It is Becoming Supernatural by Dr. Joe Dispenza. I've talked about it probably on multiple episodes because I love it. It's something that I'm going to reread over and over and over and over again. And he, in this book, it's so dense like this. Like there's so much information in it that it's hard to even like relay that to you. But his work is based off of, he's a doctor, and it's based off of science, and he uses neuroscience, epigenetics, neurocardiology, and he actually does studies with the people that he's working with in real time. And he teaches you how to access transcendent levels of awareness, how to transform your biology for profound healing, and tools to reach extraordinary states of being, free yourself from the conditions of the past, and, you know, reconditioning your mind and body to welcome new states of being. And a lot of his work is about letting go of these habitual states of being. And he teaches you how to access the quantum field, access a space where time doesn't exist. And it changed how I view the universe, how I view this life, this body, this mind. And it really breaks down the constructs that I've had, that I felt like I've had in this life, I guess. Like it's so transformative. And that's like my number one book that I will recommend people forever. Like it's so science-based, but also mystical, and it will quite literally change you. He even has like pictures of brain scans in it, and you know, he has like his scientific evidence within the book as well.
Yes. So if you've never checked out Dr. Joe Dispenza, do yourself a favor and Google him right now. What I absolutely adore about him is that he combines the science and the westernized medicine with the spiritual, with the mystical, with the unknown future, you know, and that is something that is so profound, because so many people will say like, I don't believe in that. That's just, you know, witchy woo-woo or spiritual nonsense. And actually, he's an extremely well-educated, renowned doctor and speaker, and he proves and brings the science behind that. And not only that, but he also has gone through his own trauma. He was in a wheelchair. He got in a really horrible accident on a bike. I believe a semi hit him, and he was told he'll never walk again. And he was able to heal his own body with his mind. And so he's not only coming from all of this education, but also experience as well. So yeah, I can't say enough about him. He has really, really had such a profound impact on my life.
Yeah. Yes, likewise. If you're interested in the science, or if you're someone who's like needs the science to like back things up, for sure give this book a read. But honestly, anyone who's listening, you need to read this book. It's so truly life-changing.
Yes. Where do I go from here? So I'm going to stick to, since we're kind of on the subject of the mind creating the well-being or ailments within the body, this is not a book to just read, but I think every household should have a copy of this book. It is called Metaphysical Anatomy. It is by Yvette Rose, and it is volume 1. So I'm sure that, there is already a volume 2. There's probably going to be more. This book, the reason it is so massive is because it is like an encyclopedia, and it gives you the emotional causes of just about every physical ailment that you can think of. So with the science from Dr. Joe Dispenza, you can understand why this is not only accurate, but extremely helpful. I bought it because when I became a life coach, the guy I was being certified through, Nick Bro, recommended that we get it to work with our clients, because when you're working with somebody, a lot of times subconscious beliefs are something that people are not only unaware of, but also reluctant to speak on. And if you ask a person, do you have any physical ailments? They'll say, oh yeah, sure. My back hurts and this is aching and I got a broken leg and whatever. And then you can look it up in this book and you can say, okay, well, we need to work on, your fear of lack and your fear of abandonment, and and then it gives you an idea of what to look at within their subconscious and what they need to alter in order to create the life that they want, and what's holding them back from creating that life. And also, I've looked at it for myself. I don't have too many physical ailments, but I've had asthma and things like that, and looking into what creates those ailments can awaken you to what you might be holding on to emotionally.
Yes. I remember like a couple months ago, I used to have like heartburn and acid reflux like crazy growing up, and I was just curious about that. So I looked at the meaning, and it was so deep, but I was like, oh, that makes so much sense, like based off of my environment growing up and stuff. Yes. I was like, okay.
It's a lot like tarot cards. It really calls you out, but it's always right. And so it's like, okay, well, if you're ready to hear it, then that's kind of what you want to work on, what you want to look at, and how you can heal your body as well. So, that is wonderful. Also, it just caught my eye. So Ask and It Is Given by Abraham Hicks. This one is much more spiritual, an easier read. It really teaches you how to find alignment and how to manifest what you want. And the foreword is by Dr. Wayne Dyer, who is also another wonderful source for this kind of information, who's also a medical doctor. And he was kind of before Joe Dispenza. He was a bit older and he died actually, but he has wonderful work out, and there's tons of resources for his work on the internet as well. Great book. One of the first books I ever read about spirituality. Yeah, I would say even to this day, I think both of us, we actually listen to talkings by Abraham. It's been so resonant to me ever since I kind of began my spiritual journey, and I do continue to understand it deeper and deeper. But I do see it as a very, like, it kind of brings some lightness into like the spirituality concepts. And it really did teach me how to be a deliberate creator, but it also taught me that I am a co-creator with the universe. And, it is
very focused on universal laws, especially the law of attraction. And, it is a new perspective on manifestation. I've never had another teacher talk about manifestation in the same way that Abraham's teachings does. And I just love it. It's so happy. And every time I read or listen to Abraham, I am filled with joy.
Yeah. Oh, that's such a wonderful way to put it. I completely agree. Abraham Hicks was one of the first people I ever heard speak like this or on this topic or about law of attraction at all. She definitely had a massive effect on part as to why I became a life coach or why I became a consultant or why I even live the life that I do the way that I do, why I hold the beliefs that I do. I owe a ton of that to her. I agree about listening to her. It is light. She is funny. You can be in the darkest of dark places and still hear it, and you'll hear it deeper and different, the more that you understand it, but wonderful source to listen to. I remember, when I was kind of going through my own contrast quite a few years back, I would listen to her every day because it would bring me into alignment every single time. It still does. I still get something out of it. I understand the concepts on such a deep level, but it still helps to listen. I love Abraham Hicks, the best.
Yes, agreed.
The next book I would like to mention, and this is one of the first spiritual books I ever really resonated with too, is called Be Here Now. And I truly believe that is the key to life, to be here now. There is only the here now, the eternal here now. I genuinely believe that time is an illusion. This book is written by Ram Dass, who in the beginning it goes over kind of how he got into this and his life. And he was teaching at Ivy League colleges. So he was highly educated, had a doctorate degree in psychology, and him and some of these other renowned teachers were experimenting with different hallucinogenics because they wanted to learn how to live in a higher state of consciousness. And so eventually, because they were doing drugs, they got fired, which caused him to travel the world. And he ended up following around this barefoot guy in like India for months at a time, just living off the land and truly learning the meaning of life. And he ends up meeting like a guru in the Himalayan mountains, and it's just a really fascinating book. And then so after it kind of, talks about all that, it goes into this other part of the book, which I really love that they did this. So you can see the pages are brown if you're watching the video, and the writing is black. And I believe that the reason that they did this, and especially on certain pages, like there's so much, like I'll show you, there's so many pictures within this book. And I think it's because it forces you to really, really focus on the words. It makes it more difficult to read, but in doing that and slowing you down intentionally, you're able to get a deeper meaning out of it, which it's just a really freaking magical book.
I feel like you have to use different parts of your brain to
to do that and to understand it. And this is another book where like you might read it and be like, oh, that's kind of cool, or you might even not understand it the first time you read it. And then you read it again and you're like, whoa, that's really profound. And then you read it again and it gets even deeper. I'll just read a random page. Here, what time is it now? Try 4:32, 3 weeks from next Thursday. By God, it is. There's no getting away from it. That's the way it is. The eternal present. You finally figure out that it's only the clock that's going around. It's doing its thing, but you're sitting here right now, always. Yeah. So some people are going to understand those a little deeper than others, but
yeah,
it's
love
a great
that.
book.
Love that. I have another spiritual book. It is The Book of Secrets by Deepak Chopra. He is a really great resource. He has more of an Eastern focus on things and an Ayurvedic perspective on spirituality. And I'll first say that the book is filled with 15 secrets, he calls them, to change our lives and tap into the limitless possibilities around us. One thing that this book really taught me, I would say, is not fearing death. He goes into the fact that dying is to regenerate. So something dies so that it can regenerate. And so he goes into the concept of like you at 5 years old, that doesn't exist. That version of you is dead. And the way that he describes that is very, very interesting. And he talks about your soul doesn't leave your body actually leaves your soul. And just, I don't know, his whole perspective on death is just actually very comforting, I would say. And you know, he has a lot of other concepts in his book that are helpful and do help you live a fulfilling life. And that's just something that I recommend. And if you're not familiar with him, I do just recommend like looking into him in general. He does a lot of different things. He has a lot of platforms that he talks on, and I think he hosts meditations, and he is now starting a yoga school. So he is doing all the things, but he's a really good resource for spiritual.
Completely agree. I absolutely love him. And actually, he is a medical doctor as well, which I think a lot of people don't know because he is so like spiritual guru, but he's also highly educated and wonderful resource. Love him. There are so many. This is another one of my absolute favorite. If you struggle with lack and, you know, desiring more money, this one really changed my perspective on money. It is called Busting Loose from the Money Game by Robert Scheinfeld. This one has just taught me to view it so differently. And so as we were talking about, like a ton of these books talk about, you know, holding on to certain beliefs, subconscious beliefs, or, you know, agreements, or what might it be. In this book, he talks about it as like energetic eggs. And so when you find like an egg, you release the energy and you reclaim the energy from it. And it just helps you to recognize like what you're holding on to, what you're believing around money. And it changes your perspective around, like, there's this page where he talks about like what you should do when you're writing a check. And writing a check is like writing out a letter for appreciation. And he talks about the concept of like you're creating the entire reality. It's like a movie that you're just witnessing. And so you have to be appreciative for all these little details that you created to make yourself believe that it's real. And I'm like, I love that perspective. Like he really, really sees it the way that I see it. And I love that. And he kind of makes it fun. And he goes into the concept of a hologram and how it's actually created and how physical reality actually functions exactly like a hologram. And so the grid, or like the information basically that's put into a hologram to create the image, is like the grid that you're holding on to in your subconscious mind that's creating the reality that you're experiencing. And so as you change that, then you create the external reality as well. So it's a freaking great book.
I want to read that so bad. I've heard a lot of people recommend it.
So good. So good. I want to find just a random. I have so many things that are written in here. Here, I circled this part. Yes, this is the one about the check. Perfect. As I sign the slip, I then conclude by saying something like this to myself. I express this appreciation from the infinite abundance that's my natural state, knowing that as I make that expression, the abundance I experience in my hologram expands and returns to me. Yep.
And that's something that you could even like affirm to yourself, because when you're charging your debit card or your credit card, because I've never written a check, I don't own a checkbook, so that would be like my version of doing that.
Yes.
I'd be like swiping my card and like affirm that to myself.
Yes. You actually look forward to paying bills instead of dreading it or having the negative sort of experience that you have now. When you express appreciation, you must really feel it. So changing, you know, the lack to instead appreciation, it really changes your perspective on money, and it is so good. And it's also a really spiritual book as well. It's really, I love it so much.
I love that. I listened to someone talk about how when they're like paying their bills, they have a date. They're having a date with like their bills. So then they sit down and they pay all their bills, and they have like, you know, like a glass of wine or like some, like light some candles, and like you're creating it like a very vibey, high vibe environment as you pay your bills. And you're,
I love that. that. They make it a fun experience.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Honestly, I've always, for some reason, I haven't always had the best money beliefs, but with bills, I've always been happy to pay them. I always pay them immediately. I'm like, oh, I have the money. Let's do it. I love all of my bills are always paid on time, and I love that. I'll just read this short little page to you too, because this one's lovely. Because you have the power to create absolutely anything you want, your natural state is one of infinite abundance. Your natural state, you don't lack anything. Nothing is missing. No desire ever goes unfulfilled. As an infinite being, you're also a constant state of joyfulness and peace. God consciousness. Love that.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful.
I think all of these books really just remind us of the truth about what is, and that's the most magical part. Remember who you are.
Yes.
You infinite, abundant, godly creator.
Yes. And I feel like it's so special to have all these different books, because you might find one that really truly resonates with you. Like this abundance of books right here. Maybe they don't all resonate with you, but there's one perspective in here that will change your life.
Yeah.
There's someone in here that has a perspective that will change your life.
Most definitely. I would say with books too, there's this kind of like magical, intuitive thing about them where you just know. So don't think too much about it, or you don't have to buy all of them or something like that, but look at them and you might get excited about the cover of one or something like that, and it's meant for you. And if you do want to find these books, all of my social medias have my link tree in them, and I do have them on my Amazon page in a whole list as well.
I have a few more books to share that are more along the lines of like witchy, because a lot of my studies include that as well. Like I love, just exploring and connecting with astrology and earth and all the witchy things. So if you feel similarly, I have some good recommendations. If you are wanting to learn about crystals, or you just want a way to connect more with crystals or learn more about them, I love Understanding Crystals by Cassie UHL. It's super pretty, and it just kind of tells you anything you'd want to know about your crystals, charging them, what charging them during different moon phases will look like, and it talks about their makeup, so why they actually work, and just talking a lot about like their energetic vibration and things like that. And then I recommend the Illustrated Crystallary. This book has stunning photos, and it goes through 36 different crystals. It's kind of like a breakdown of these crystals, and it comes with a little oracle deck, so you can pull a crystal out of the card deck, and then you can turn to the page and it will give you a message. It will tell you about the crystal, and then different rituals that you can do with that crystal, or give you some insights from that said crystal. It's really amazing. One of my favorite astrological books is The Stars Within You, and it is a modern guide to astrology by Juliana McCarthy. It really breaks down all the different signs. It breaks down elements of your birth chart and how to read the main elements of your birth chart, and it just really encourages the self-exploration of your astrology, and it's just a really amazing tool to understand astrology, and it's really easy to navigate. So if you just want to look for like something about like looking up Libra as a sun sign or Libra in Mercury, like it's really an easy book to navigate and to reference for whatever you might need. And then I have Yoga for Witches by Sarah Robinson. If you are witchy and you love yoga, please read that.
I need it.
I've practiced yoga in this way before I even bought this book, but it kind of weaves the practice of yoga with witchiness. So how to weave spells and mantras and magic into your practice, and connecting to the sun, the moon, the earth, and aligning that with your practice and connecting to your inner power and your inner witch. Super amazing. And then lastly, I would say the Green Witch is a really good resource for like natural magic, and it goes through the different meaning of herbs, flowers, trees, and embracing and connecting to the power of earth. There's different rituals in there, there's different spells, oils, potions that you can create. It goes over different crystals for healing and just connecting to all of the elements. So those are some of my favorite resources. I have one more. It is the Spirit Almanac. Oh my gosh, I don't remember who it's by at the moment, but the Spirit Almanac is a really great book if you want to align with the seasons and align with what Mother Earth is doing at the time and what kind of the astrological elements going on at that time. So it breaks it down by season. So it will go through spring, summer, fall, and winter. It goes over the energy. It goes over rituals that you can do. It goes over like cultural aspects of it. It goes over like different holidays that are in that given season and, maybe a different perspective of ways that you can celebrate. And that has been a great resource for me to kind of go with the natural cycle of life and a great way to like have fun with it too, and like how to implement that into your daily life. I think that's all.
I love that. Okay, I want all of those. Yeah, there are luckily an infinite abundance of books, and there are so many more that I could mention, but I'll stop there. I would say if you haven't checked out Eckhart Tolle, he's a wonderful spiritual speaker. He's funny and he's calm. He's like always in this yin state, and I love him. This book, it's called The Miracle of Mindfulness. Thich Nhat Hanh is really great if you're wanting to learn more about like how to meditate and also how to value your time more. And he talks about like how you can kind of meditate while you're doing the dishes, and you can appreciate that. And a lot of people will kind of like resent their children for taking their time, and you can see that time with your child as your time, and so it changes perspective on time a lot. And that's wonderful. Sadhu Guru, I really love his work too. There's so many other people too, but this will give you some place to get started. And some of these books are my absolute favorite ones for sure.
Yeah, these are like near and dear to our heart. And yeah, I can't wait for you guys to explore some of these for yourselves. We would love to know if you've read any of these, or what you are most excited to read. Let us know.
As always, let us know if there's anything that you would love to hear us talk about. We are happy to talk about all things.
So we will finish off this episode by leaving you guys with a message. And I don't think that we have used this deck on the podcast before, but this is the Arthurian Tarot deck, and we will see what it has to tell us today.
This was actually the first deck that I ever got. They say that decks are meant to pick you, and this one just resonated so deeply with me. It's like all about Scotland, and it has never done me wrong. I love this deck. So with that said, these cards have like kind of, it's Arthurian legend, right? Like, so that's how the cards sound. You'll understand when I read this what I mean by that. But they have stories and it's legend, and I love it.
So this is the card that was pulled. If you are watching, that's what it looks like.
So it's the Grail Maiden. Maidens are meant to bring you a message, and Grail is meant to represent water, fall, change, and hearts. It says, beside a spring, the Grail Maiden stands holding an earthenware vessel. The Grail Maiden guides all who go in search of the vessel, offering them to drink. Not all recognize the meaning of this gesture, as witness the acts of King Amagons and his men who raped and despoiled the damsels of the wells. Upright represents an imaginative, creative, loving, sympathetic, artistic, humanitarian person. A dream, inspirational news. And reversed represents an addiction, reclusiveness, and insecurity. The question is, how do you serve the Grail? And a lot of times in this book, it talks about the all-important Grail question, which is, whom does the Grail serve? And to me, it's like asking, how do you create your reality? Because whom does the Grail serve, like, is almost like who creates the external reality, and it's you and your emotion that does. So how do you serve the Grail is like, what are you putting out into the universe that is creating the reality you experience, or that is giving back the energy that you're receiving right now. So hopefully that is helpful to somebody. And the woman, she's like beautiful and offering something here. And I think for me, the way that this card resonates is like, not everybody will see your magic, but those who are meant to will. Don't accept less.
Love that. I love that.
On that note, thanks again for listening. Thanks for raising the frequency with us. And I hope that these books help change your life in the most beautiful, beautiful way.
Yes. We'll see you next week. Thank you.
Bye.